almost everyone comes in and says, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted and I'm not having restful sleep. I need naps all day long and I can't sleep at night. And it comes along with all of these other symptoms. You know, you might have walked in the door for extreme bloating or inability to lose weight. I see a lot of eczema, full body hives. I see a lot of chronic diagnosed illnesses as well. And like I said, a ton of hormonal, but across everyone that comes through there, everyone is not having the energy that they once did and that they know that they should have. That's like across the board.
Welcome back to another episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. I am your host, Dave Polikoff, your personal brand consultant. And today we are chatting with someone who has grown their personal brand to help grow their holistic healing business. So we're going to learn a little bit about her backstory and how she was able to use her personal brand to attract new clients. On today's episode, we have Nicole Broderick. She helps individuals with chronic symptoms and conditions reclaim their health and live fulfilling lives through a holistic, personalized approach to healing. Nicole combines diagnostic assessments, active listening, and relationship building to address not just physical symptoms, but also emotional and spiritual root causes. She draws from her own journey overcoming chronic illness and has helped countless clients transform their mindset, giving them to the tools to achieve enduring wellness in their body, minds, and souls. Nicole's mission is to empower her clients to listen to their bodies, heal deeply, and experience vibrant, abundant lives. So Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So I know with holistic healing, this is a more niche industry and topic. So that's why I really want to dive into it, because for our audience who are trying to actively grow their personal brands, I'm sure they can relate when it comes to having kind of that harder to understand niche and such. So let's start with the idea of explain a little bit about what it is exactly you do.
So I help people uncover the root causes of their chronic illnesses that may often be overlooked in the doctor's office, ultimately to help them take ownership of their own health and empower them to live like a more optimal and purposeful life.
Sure. Yeah, I know a lot of people struggle with, they go through some of these problems, these pains. They go to traditional medical sources, and they sometimes just say, pop an Advil in and sleep on it and see if it goes away. And they just never find that solution. So it's really interesting what you do. I want to get more into that in a second here. But first, this is kind of an interesting situation where, like I said, some people go to doctors, they don't really know why something's happening. They don't get a solution. Who's like an ideal person to come to you? When's the time that people should say, you know what, maybe I should hit up Nicole and see what's going on here?
Totally. Yeah. So I think that really it's about like listening to the body. And that's really the first sign of wanting to come in, of being like something's wrong. But really when your signals should go up on seeking alternative help is when you know instinctively, intuitively something's wrong. You've either felt better in the past and you're feeling less good now. And doctors are saying to you, everything's fine. Your blood work is fine. This is just part of getting older, even though you're only 30, right? All of these things that you know instinctively should not be happening to you. You know that there's something else out there and you're looking for it. That's when you should really tune into yourself and say, I know that there are other solutions out there and I need to find them.
Yeah, for sure. So let's take a step back and kind of follow your journey to holistic healing and how you've been able to grow your own practice here. It kind of was alluded to in the intro, but it sounds like you've kind of overcome your own medical issues. So walk us through what's kind of your story and how you got involved in holistic healing.
100%. Yeah. So for me, it actually happened like I know that the day everything happened, which is really unique. That doesn't typically happen with other people, but I was about to move to New York. I was really stressed changing cities, and I was having a bit of like a goodbye dinner. And the next day, after just having 2 drinks, I was at work and like basically collapsed on the floor. Couldn't really move, was like throwing up, couldn't stand up, and then ended up having to leave, but couldn't even drive myself home. And the next 2 weeks until I moved, things were just really chaotic. I was not feeling like myself. Everything was totally crashing. And when I moved to New York, I just kind of focused on work, but all of these things were getting much worse. And it got basically, long story short, to an extreme point of where I couldn't eat any solid foods without throwing up or being like doubled over in pain. So I stopped eating solid foods completely. I was living on coffee, but completely exhausted. I was wanting to sleep all the time, but as soon as it was time to sleep, I couldn't do it. My skin was breaking out. My periods were irregular. My stomach looked like I was 9 months pregnant, even though I wasn't eating. So nothing was making sense. And I ended up finding a doctor in New York. Well, I did some of my own healing as well, like, cut out gluten and cut out dairy and tried these things that other people had tried and had put me in the ER. And ultimately, after being in the ER, they tested me to see if I was pregnant and ovarian cysts. And once those two things were clear, they were like, "You're good to go." And at this point, I hadn't eaten in about anything in about 4 days and walked into the ER puking. And I knew that, okay, something's wrong. So I found a doctor who does a bit of a different version of the work that I do today. And within that 30-minute first appointment, she told me that she had found a parasitic infection that had eaten through my gut lining. So now was basically all foods I was eating, healthy or unhealthy, were completely going to the wrong place and having like an over response in my system. And then I needed to scale these things back, take a few herbs, and we would go from there. And within 2 weeks, I had none of the symptoms that I had come in there with. Bloating was down. I was sleeping. My cycles were regular. Weight just started kind of dropping off. It's really bloating. And as I kept going to her and she began to go deeper into the system and do this work more and more, things that I had been struggling with my entire life that I never even thought to bring up because I just thought they were part of me started to disappear. So I was born with scoliosis, really chronic pain through my back, and was going to get spinal surgery before I was 30. And through doing her work, she actually found Lyme disease that was like affecting my neurological system, really affecting my spine. And after doing maybe 2 Lyme treatments over a couple weeks, all of the pain that I had been dealing with for the last 20 plus years that I was scheduling spinal surgery for went away. Headaches went away. I could move again. I could feel strong again. I had no numbness in my extremities. And it just turned all the lights on for me. I had to do it.
Wow. That's crazy because I think a lot of our audience can relate to stories like this where especially as personal branders, we're solopreneurs and we work from home and we don't have a lot of healthy habits. And I'm sure whether it's the food we eat or just like, sitting at a desk all day and our posture or whatever, we kind of chalk some things up to just like, oh, it must be that. But it sounds like there's some underlying things here that can actually be the root cause of some of these things. And sometimes we're taking the thing we saw on TikTok as the solution, and we are
Yeah.
spending money we don't need to or whatever. What are some of the typical reasons or most common reasons people are coming to you? And what kind of problems are they trying to solve?
Totally. So, some of the biggest things I see are like women hormonal issues, whether that's like infertility, painful periods, irregular periods, etc. But something across the board, even though it's not like the first symptom that's out of their mouth, almost everyone comes in and says, "I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted and I'm not having restful sleep. I need naps all day long and I can't sleep at night." And it comes along with all of these other symptoms. You might have walked in the door for um, extreme bloating or inability to lose weight. I see a lot of eczema, full body hives. I see a lot of chronic diagnosed illnesses as well. And like I said, a ton of hormonal, but across everyone that comes through there, everyone is not having the energy that they once did and that they know that they should have. That's like across the board.
And what's typically the root cause of that? Because I know I deal with that. I know so many people who take like the 2:30 nap. What's typically some of the reasons behind that can be solved?
Totally. So it really varies. And I hate to say that, but it depends like why the fatigue is. And we have to think about when we're constantly in infection or like if you have a virus or something, temperature goes up, you need to sleep more, the body understands it's sick, and then the virus leaves the system and then you have your energy back, right? But what happens when the abundance of toxins or the chronic deficiencies that we're experiencing aren't leaving the system? It's not so acute and it's more chronic. So we have to think about like in terms of fatigue, is the body fighting something and has been fighting something for years that it shouldn't be? Lyme, bacteria, fungus, are we living in a moldy environment, right? Are all of the alarm signals constantly going off, which doesn't allow us to actually go into a parasympathetic or a healing state when we should be in bed, right? It's taking so much energy.
Mm.
Then on top of that, so that's like parasitic infections, right? Things that are in the body that should not be causing a lot of like a war. Then on the other side of that is deficiencies. Is there mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, nutrient like energy production per cell deficiencies, so that when your body is trying to upregulate against stress, which we should be able to handle, there's nothing there for it to grab. There's no fuel in the tank and there's no resources to use. So we're living this insane world of we're more toxic than we've ever been. We have more environmental toxins, heavy metals, and foreign chemicals, as well as pathogens. And now our bodies are less equipped to deal with them than ever before. And that's really what's driving our system into throwing all sort of symptoms out, but definitely causing that fatigue.
Hey, Blueprint fam, if you're enjoying today's episode and finding my guest insights valuable, then you'll definitely want to subscribe to the Personal Brand Blueprint podcast as we drop weekly guest interview episodes just like this one. And on that note, you obviously also see firsthand how powerful being an effective guest like the one you're watching on this episode right now can be at attracting qualified, interested leads directly into your sales funnel. But I know what you're thinking. You want to get into guest podcasting, but starting feels confusing and overwhelming. What equipment do you need? And how do you look and sound great? And how do you turn listeners into leads? I know this because so many of my guests had these exact problems in the past. And that is why I created the Podcast Guest Mastery Blueprint. It's a simple but powerful breakdown on everything you need to look, sound, and convert great as a podcast guest. Everything from how to set up your recording area to what equipment you need to look and sound great on camera, and what to say on podcasts to stand out, be memorable, and earn the audience's trust. And then that one key strategy to turn listeners into leads. I'm telling you, this isn't just another checklist. This is a step-by-step blueprint to make sure you look, sound, and present your best on podcasts so you can convert that attention into leads and ultimately new business. I honestly was thinking about selling this for like $97, but I'd rather give access to this guide to my Personal Brand Blueprint podcast audience for free. So if you are ready to become a sought-after podcast guest and use it to generate leads and build your personal brand, and grab your copy of Podcast Guest Mastery Blueprint at davepoly.com/podguestblueprint. You can find the link to that in the show notes below. Again, that's davepoly.com/podguestblueprint and start turning podcast interviews into business. Again, it's completely free for being a loyal listener, so definitely check it out. Cool? All right, let's get back to the conversation. So this is an area, like I said before, that not too many people are familiar with. I mean, we're more familiar with just kind of traditional medicine or traditional ways of healing, if you will. How has that affected your ability to kind of communicate, or if at all, what you do? And let's talk about kind of like attracting clients and showcasing your message. Has there been any struggles with trying to communicate, like, this is what I do, and it's different than traditional medicine?
Yeah, definitely. I think that for me, it's like you have to already want in for the words that I'm saying to land, right? If there's a ton of people out there who, I hate to say, like, wallow in their symptoms, but they do, and it's like this disease and this chronic case is happening to me, and therefore my life is full of these chronic diseases and full of these cases, and that's how I'll operate. I either need to be medicated or I'll never feel good. There's those people who truly don't have insight that maybe there's something else, right? Or maybe that there's a way that we can peel these things back. And so that can be really difficult to break through on. Like, I know that these diagnoses are very true and real to you, and they do actually physically exist, but that doesn't mean that something didn't get you there. And that doesn't mean that there's nothing that we can do about it. So that tends to be a really big struggle. Whereas the opposite of that is when I think a lot of people, especially now, are realizing, like, I've been feeling like crap for so long. I'm doing what the doctor said. I took the pill. It didn't work. I'm constantly getting sick. You're always telling me the same thing. And how are my levels completely fine when I know that I'm totally crashing on the inside? And those are the ears that I prefer my words to land on, because they're saying, I know there's something wrong. I just don't know where the solution is. I think that that's where, and other practitioners can come into play.
Now, in this digital age, you actually work with people in person, and I think also remotely, but largely your practice is in person, one-on-one. What is that kind of like in-person experience like that you try to instill? Because obviously these people are in pain, they're hurting and whatnot. what's kind of the experience like when someone comes to you, because you're located in Philadelphia, I believe.
Yep.
When someone comes to you in person, like from walking into the door to like first assessment, what's that experience like?
Totally. So for me, it's really about like understanding and trust and like being seen when you're at your most vulnerable, I think is an issue. I hear it all the time is that people come into their doctors and they're waiting for months to get this appointment and their doctor basically barely looks up from the chart. And I think for me, what I'm looking at is I'll listen to the symptoms of what you think brought you into this office, right? Can't sleep, can't poop, cycles are off, something like that. But what I'm actually listening to is the story that your body's been telling me for all along. You know, what are your relationships like? Do you feel like you have purpose in your life? What is your relationship to your job? What was your relationship with your family? Where did you grow up? Do you have support around you? And then in general, what did your lifestyle look like as a child? And now, what are your past diagnoses? And now, all of these things really matter to build the person that ends up sitting in front of us, right? What we're looking at is a snapshot and a collection of every single day and every single experience that has been building in this person, which is why we can see things change so much, even from brother to sister, right? If someone was 5 years old and got strep and the sister did not, and they were on years of antibiotics, the gut microbiome is going to be completely different in this being, and the body's life and the brain ability to connect is going to be totally different than the person who grew up in the exact same environment, but the body was in a different space, and vice versa. Same body, different environments can also do the same thing.
Yeah. Now, again, this being kind of like a niche topic, when people come into you, what's typically like their top questions that they're trying to have answered about like, what is this? You know, am I going to die and all that kind of stuff? Like, what are some of the things that people are like curious about, question about, and what's kind of the common answer that you give them?
Yeah. One of the biggest questions is, will I get better and how long will it take? And for that, I say approximately every year that you've been feeling less than optimal is probably going to take a month of healing. But also on top of that, the more you do outside of me, the less I'll have to do in here, right? If I'm just constantly chasing this thing that you're like beating up as soon as you leave the office, then like we're going to play this game way longer. And then one of the other biggest questions is, how do I prevent these things from happening again? And for me, that's really comes down to adaptability. Is okay, how do I prevent toxicities getting into my system again? And how do I prevent deficiencies that need to be within me from being deficient again? Really what we're looking for is adaptability, is we should be able to handle a state of stress and we should be able to upregulate, fight, and then downregulate again. So we need to look at our environments and see, okay, in our homes, can we control the chemicals that we're being exposed to, the heavy metals that we're around? Can we keep a non-toxic kind of lifestyle? Can we support stress? And then also for deficiencies to really, are we eating whole foods that allow our gut microbiome to build the bacteria, to have this first line of defense, to be able to respond appropriately? It's so, so important to have the nutrients that we actually need so that we can be this battleground that we actually need to be, which then causes the issue becomes less of where did I get this bacteria or parasites, more why did my body not fight it off when it had the chance?
Yeah. Now you've grown a successful business. Would you say solopreneur? Do you have a team with you?
I have Julie here with me.
There you go.
She's my front desk manager. I've had teams with me in the past, but her and I are together in this team.
Awesome. So, but largely, I think to this point, kind of growing individually. Walk us through some of those early days of like starting to build your own practice. How did you initially get the word out? Like, hey, I'm Nicole and I do this thing. You know, who needs help? You know, before the success, kind of what were the early days in growing the business?
Totally. I mean, I had no idea what to do. And when I went from working underneath the practice into building my first solo practice in New York, it was just word of mouth. I was like, okay, I used to live here. I know some people who have some chronic illnesses. I'm going to hit them up and like say, I do this thing and invite them in. And that really got the ball rolling for me, where I've really actually never done any marketing. But it was, one at a time, someone coming in, even though they were coming in because their hair is falling out. They're like, wait, I have a friend whose child is covered in eczema. Is this something that you can do? And I think really my clients have been my biggest source of marketing, my biggest advocators, because they get better. And people say, whoa, you look better. You lost weight. You're da, 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 you have more energy, wherever the thing is. And they're just like, go. I don't know what she does, but go see my girl, Nicole. And I've been so blessed that that still tends to be the way that people come in, is that of results of people that they know.
Yeah, I say the best sales team is a happy client,
Yeah.
and seems to be true for you as well. Kind of walk me through that. I mean, so we get our first handful of clients. They are seeing great results. What are some other ways that you've been also trying to get the word out? I mean, is it largely referrals? Are you trying to go online? What's kind of your promotional tactics here?
Definitely. I mean, I'd like to be online much more. I think that we see so much like on like TikTok about, these really niche subjects and really niche topics. But to be totally honest, like I don't have one of those. Like my niche topic is that your body's speaking to you. Like, please, like know that there's ways to listen and find out what those things are. But I don't have, I see girls who always are talking about cortisol, and every single post is like, this is what cortisol is doing. This is what, and I don't have that. So I'm really trying to find a way to educate and promote all of the data that's in my head from this clinical time of seeing clients, but do it efficiently and also make it relatable. And it's a struggle, I'm not gonna lie. If you've never had it done, it's like, I don't want to just record sessions, because if you've never had your arm pushed on, you don't know that I'm not just like bullshitting through this. Um, if you don't know the person who's getting better, how do you know it's working for them? And how do you know that it would work for you?
Yeah. So it sounds like honesty is a big element to your brand, your personal brand. What are some other kind of core values that you make sure are reflected in the way you do business and the way you promote yourself?
Yeah, transparency is huge for me. I never want you to leave a session thinking that I'm knowing something about your body that you're not. And with that also comes empowerment is really big. I want to make sure that even though you might have once been dependent on the medical system, and I'm so happy that you've now found natural health, I don't want you to be dependent on me forever either. I want to get your system to a place of optimization, and then you take it, and take it where it's personalized for you, and for you to go live out your life and find what's inspiring for you as well. And then trust is just so big. Like I need to make sure that I trust you in what you're doing, but also that you trust me once again in knowing that I'm not trying to give you anything to sell a program of mine. I'm not trying to make this a copy paste type of assessment. I really want you to know that when you're coming in here, I'm looking at you as an individual on this day whose body's been telling this exact story. And I'm going to treat exactly that person like I would not treat anyone else.
Love that. And so you have a brick and mortar shop in or location in Philadelphia. I think you might be in New York as well, but you also do remote. So what are some of the ways that people can either come in to the location or get a hold of you? Like how what are the options that you have available?
Definitely. I mean, the best option is going to be straight through our website so that you can read a little bit more. There's a ton of FAQs on there, so that you can just kind of see what each service is offering in like the broad scheme. And then we'll get a little bit more detailed on the phone. So if you just click the Book Now website, it'll bring you through. And then if you want, I always am offering a free 15-minute phone call so that I can actually hear a bit more about you, so that before you walk in the door, you're knowing that I already understand where you're coming from. And that I have either seen these symptoms before, or I've worked with someone like you before you're walking into the door thinking, she's definitely never seen this and I'm all alone.
Yeah, I love that. Wonderful. Nicole, this was great. I loved the full story here of kind of the hero's journey. What we say is, you went through a pain yourself, you sought a solution and used your learnings to kind of translate that into an offer that you now help other people solve. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Any last words or anything you want to make sure people know about what you do or how they can get a hold of you?
Um, I think, I mean, the last words, like we kind of already said in the beginning, is really like to understand that just because the symptoms that you're experiencing may be common, everyone around you seems to be experiencing the same thing, and doctors are calling it normal. It's certainly not normal. Please listen to your intuition. Know that if you think that you're feeling less than optimal, then there is optimization out there. your body is telling a story and it wants to be heard. We just need to figure out the right language for it. And that's what this is all about.
Perfect. Nicole, thank you so much for being on today's episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. To
Yeah.
learn more about how you can grow your personal brand, check out davepolikoff.com to book a one-on-one consultation with me. Follow me on LinkedIn, Dave Polikoff, as well as Nicole, and follow the Personal Brand Blueprint podcast. Thanks. And that's all for today's episode of Personal Brand Blueprint.
Thank you.
Today, we learned about my guest's origin story, unique methods, and credibility. If you want to see me break down how today's guest can use those tools within the Personal Brand Blueprint strategy to attract, convince, and convert new qualified leads so you can do the same for your business, then check out this episode here. Or if you want to continue to hear more incredible personal branding origin stories and learn more valuable personal branding skills from my awesome guests, then check out the full playlist of interviews here.